yes, here we go. Monday morning, and a beautiful one at that. My dear friends, thank you so much for joining us for today. For today's edition of Gudday Grenada. I'm George Grant, and today happens to be the 21st day of the month. It is October. Because yesterday was a holiday, and your value-added tax payment was due on the 20th, you have until today to pay that VAT. Remember that, okay? I see that she's first again this morning. In second is Chester Simon. Third is Fitzroy Adams. As they quickly saunter into the chat room, well, nice to see you folks. Just let me do a little refresh here so that we can make sure that we are on Grenada Broadcast, and we are on Facebook. Thanks a lot. Peter Bishop's next, Bernard Gilbert's next. Yeah, man, they're coming in very slowly, but nice to see you guys. Well, let's take a look at what we're going to get into over the next hour or so. It's interesting, you know, for those of you on social media, you probably noticed that the buzz over the last week or so has been the sentence meted out to a local pedophile. Gentleman has not only done wrong in the eyes of the world, but he has also escaped the country. Hopped on an airplane and has gone to the United States. Well, I'm not too sure that was the smartest place to go, because just a few minutes ago I was reading on Facebook that he's going to get caught there, and he's in hot water. So we're going to deal with that matter this morning to some extent. There's a gentleman by the name of Dr. Gus Panchu, and he sent me an article which I published on the GRENADABROADCAST.com website a couple of days ago. It is captioned, "Who will stand up for our children?" I'm going to share that piece with you this morning. Interesting article. And then, after the decision was handed down and by the court, apparently the commissioner of police, his eyes went, "Huh?" And he has now filed an appeal. We were notified of that on the weekend. I think it was on Friday. And I'm going to share that statement with you. Yes, we do have the national report this morning, and then at 9:30, we will be joined by Laurel, Gemma, and Janice Bain, the Bain sisters. For the past couple of Mondays, they've been with us for a new feature here on Grenada Broadcast that's it's called Fiscal Alert. Well, they're going to be in with this week's edition at the bottom of the hour, okay? So that essentially is your rundown on this Monday morning. And let's get back here. Let's get back here and see. Ooh, yes. They're racing in there. Kipling Francis is sending his blessings, and John Bruno is saying good morning. Claude Pudna saying good morning. So is Donna Joseph. And the Right Honorable Joe Prince Hunt. Yeah. Top of the morning to all. John Noseneck says, good morning to the rest of the world from Dependency Number 1. It's sunny here now after a very rainy night. Oh, really? We didn't have a lot of rain down here. Osmond Lewis saying good morning, and so is Arthur Langine. John, behave yourself. John says, I see the caterpillar has gone from your top lip. Yeah, John, like I did mention that, you know, I grow these things, and then once they're up there, I go I don't know. It seems like the fun is actually in growing them. But once they grow, I mean, it looks, I'm not too sure. Anyway, we'll see when the next one comes. Donna Joseph says, GG, he didn't escape the country. I understand that he is in the U.S. He is a U.S. citizen, and the magistrate gave him a slap on the wrist, so he was free to go. But if that learned magistrate in her captivity, I guess you meant capacity as a parent, had used her discretion in such cases, in such a case, she would have turned it over to the DPP and the High Court, because this wasn't just an ordinary matter. Okay, so says Donna. Aline Buddy Hosford, don't remember seeing you before, but welcome, Aline. Nice to see you, saying good morning. And so Wendy is there also saying good morning. Kipling says, sad to see some people's opinion are considered to be more believable than the actual facts of the matter or the matter of discussion. Thank God for GG where you can hear both sides. We try, Kipling. And looky who was here. Penny, hello Penny. Do you still have those autumn leaves in full bloom, or are they all gone now as you guys settle up for winter? It's kind of early, but I know that you guys have it pretty cold up there. So get ready to enjoy your winter. All right, folks. Dr. Gus Panchu is a consulting clinical psychologist. And he wrote this statement last week. I published it on the GRENADABROADCAST.com website. You may go check it out there, maybe want to read along with me. And here's what he says, I quote, I sat in family court speechless, and by the time I understood what was happening, the magistrate was pronouncing her verdict. $1,500 to be paid to the courts, and $600 for counseling services for the survivor. That was the court's conclusion to an adult for forcing a 5-year-old boy to play with and suck his penis. Now, I'm not talking about a verdict for stealing 2 coconuts. I'm talking about the sexual assault of a child. I cringe to think about the lifelong effects that this traumatic experience will have on this child. Almost 30 years ago, November 20th, 1989, the United Nations ratified the Convention on the Rights of the Child, of which Grenada is a signatory. The CRC is a human rights treaty which sets out the civil, political, economic, social, health, and cultural rights of children. The convention defines a child as any human being under the age of 18, unless the age of majority is attained earlier under national legislation. As we get ready to celebrate the 30th anniversary of this treaty, a reflection of what we as a nation have done to protect and secure our children must be a part of our discussion. Who were the voices for this little child? I must applaud the mother for believing her son and having the courage to file a police report. She was in court, timid and tearful, with little to say, since the opportunity was not afforded her to do so. Where were the voices of CPA, that's the Child Protection Agency, the National Coalition on the Rights of the Child, the Ministry of Legal Affairs, the Ministry of Social Services, the Ministry of Health, and an outraged community? Where were they? The perpetrator was represented by an attorney who presented psychological and biosocial reports to justify his client's actions, coupled with the old grievous phrases. Quote, he cooperated with the police and it was his first offense, unquote. And the absence of legal teeth, the magistrate could only follow the law. So, I am mad. Mad because for almost 30 years we have given lip service to our responsibility to our children. We need lawmakers and policy advocates to introduce new laws and modify antiquated ones to deal with sexual predators and predators of crime and violence against children. We are obligated to protect our nation's children. We usually wait for some tragedy to spur us to make promise of change. But when the dust settles, we return to life as normal. Now is the time to act. Sexual assault cases must go to trial. Let a jury decide on the fate of the predator. We need to develop a more comprehensive protocol for dealing with child sexual abuse cases. From the time a report is made, an alert must go out to all the agencies so that an all-inclusive plan can be put in place to defend the rights and dignity of our children. A few months ago, a family member was given a fine also for sexually assaulting a 3-year-old child from St. Mark. The nation was outraged, but life settled back, and nothing legally was done or even talked about to remedy the crisis. So, whenever I hear a minister in the media talking about crimes against our children while the laws remain the same, I will be mad. Whenever I sit in family court and I see how the hands of the magistrates are tied because the laws have not changed, I will be mad. Whenever I see a predator walking the streets without worry to offend, I will be mad. To answer the words of Antoine Fisher, and I quote here, "Who will cry for the little boy?" unquote. I will cry. I need a few persons to join with me in standing up for our children. That's the text of an article which was written by Dr. Gus Pancher. You can check it out on the GRENADABROADCAST.com website. Meanwhile, I came across something which just made me shake my head on the weekend. Found it in social media on one of Callistra Faria's pages. And let me quote here. Bear in mind what I just shared with you. And then listen to this. Meanwhile, in the #1 Magistrate Court on Thursday, Acting Senior Magistrate Teddy St. Louis sentenced Riel Vincent to 3 years for kissing a 10-year-old girl. You just heard a story about a gentleman who did a lot worse and got away. Okay. Now, the Royal Grenada Police Force issued this statement, I think it was on Friday, and again, I quote, The Commissioner of Police has filed an appeal on the sentence handed down to Treverson Roberts, who was charged summarily and pleaded guilty in the Grenville Magistrate Court last week to one count of indecent assault. The offense was committed against a minor. The commissioner, in whose name the indecent assault case was brought, acted on the advice of the Director of Public Prosecutions in appealing the leniency of the sentence. Roberts was sentenced to pay a fine of $1,500 to the state of Grenada and $600 to the family of the child as compensation for medical expenses. The maximum sentence for the charge of indecent assault is 5 years imprisonment. Enough said. I'm going to stop there. Let me get back here to social media. Let's see. Good morning to you, Sean. Thank you very much for chiming in. Glenn Andrew Mark, good morning. Charmaine Delia, good morning. John says, Donna Joseph, why couldn't the judge force the pedophile to hand over his passport and take this case to a jury trial, not just a fine? He also goes on to say it was his first time he has been caught. Duncan Itzbroco is saying good morning to you all, and Kipling Francis says, imagine such unfortunate circumstances are on the rise in the country when you have 6 women ministers in government. Yeah. Yeah. Boy, where is their condemnation? How do we expect the men to take the lead when the women are silent? Shame, says Kipling. Pilgrims, Georgie Borgie is going to take a break, and then we'll come back with the National Report.
Because your vehicle is a necessity, being roadworthy is critical. Hubbard's Motor Department introduces its new tire and battery sales and service outlet located at Building Supplies Compound in Grand Anse, close to the Sugar Mill Roundabout. Available are a wide range of competitively priced tires, maintenance-free batteries, oils and lubricants. Keeping in mind your busy schedule, this outlet is equipped to provide you with fast and reliable service. Simply drive in and you'll be delighted with your service experience. For more information, contact 440-2087. Hubbard's, quality service, affordable prices.
Hey, what? I just came from the land and this sign here caught my eye. What's that sign about?
Someone must have asked Grenlec to move a pole. But you know, there's no space reserved on the side of the road for planting poles. So Grenlec has to get permission from landowners, and that can take a lot of time.
Oh, Grenlec asked me to help them contact my neighbor Ben about planting a pole on his land. But Ben passed away. His children own the land, but they all live abroad.
That's why Grenlec needs customers to inform them in writing at least 3 months in advance.
3 months? All that?
It seems like a lot. But think about the time it will take for Grenlec to find and get permission from all of Ben's children. And sometimes moving one pole requires you to move the pole before, the one after, plus the wires that support them on the ground. That means even more landowners to find and get permission from. Then Grenlec needs to schedule their teams and notify customers about any power outages.
Well, I need the pole on the farm moved, so I'm going to write Grenlec a letter now.
Grenlec, energizing our Grenada.
You don't know how many hurricanes will be coming this season, so you need to be prepared. At Hubbard's Hardware and Building Supply Departments and the Food Fair supermarkets, everything from canned foods, flashlights and batteries, to plywood, tarpaulin, lanterns, roof repair kits, water tanks, etc. are available. For over 90 years, we've helped you prepare for and recover from storms. Hubbard's Hardware, Food Fair Supermarkets, and the Grenadian General Insurance, an integral part of your hurricane preparedness plan.
I'm always on the move. Training, traveling, competing. So it's good to know I have Quad Bank in the palm of my hand.
Introducing e-banking, one of many customer convenience services from Grenada Cooperative Bank, and there's more to come.
It's swift, simple, and secure.
Welcome home.
All right, just a footnote here. Margaret says that she understands that there are moves afoot in the United States to get him deported to Grenada. We're talking about that pedophile. She says reports have been filed with various agencies. John says to her, I'm very surprised that locals hadn't taken the matter into their own hands. Not that I'm condoning this action, but, yeah, and you're not the only one I've heard that coming from, John. And he's also asking Margaret is, will he go on the sex offenders list in the United States? To which Margaret says, I don't know. Okay, folks, 21 minutes after the hour, here comes your national report.
Unions refuse to show up to conciliation meeting in deadlocked wage negotiations. We'll have details to this story and more in the national report. With the details to the news for Friday, October 18th, I am Rakisha St. Louis. Labour Commissioner Mr. Cyrus Griffith has issued a second invitation to the union's negotiating team for a pre-conciliation briefing on October 21st. In the letter dispatched today, the Labour Commissioner also proposed another attempt at conciliation involving the disputing parties on Tuesday 22nd. The second invitation was issued after the union's negotiating team failed to show up for Friday's conciliation talks. The government negotiating team accepted the initial invitation from the Labour Commissioner and showed up for today's conciliation meeting, as well as the pre-meeting on Thursday. The unions also failed to show up for Thursday's pre-conciliation briefing, choosing instead to present a letter to the Labour Commissioner requesting that he use his good office to encourage the disputing parties to return to the negotiating table. Friday's letter from the Labour Commissioner also advised the unions that their failure to attend conciliation constitutes a breach of the Labour Relations Act and the procedures outlined in the collective labour agreement between the unions and the government. The conciliation talks are aimed at breaking a deadlock in negotiations declared by the government negotiating team, given the wide disparity in proposals presented by either side for wage increases for public officers. The union's revised demand represents a 24% increase in salary for public officers over the next contract cycle, 2020 to 2023, which is expected to increase government's wage bill by $89 million, just $1 million less than the original proposal. Government's negotiating team is offering public officers increases amounting to $27 million as part of an overall package that also includes pension restoration to qualifying officers. Grenada moves a step closer towards implementing a geothermal development project through collaboration with the government of New Zealand. The project will expand access to affordable, reliable, climate-resilient energy solutions from geothermal resources and will also reduce this country's reliance on imported fossil fuel. On Friday, Energy Minister Honourable Gregory Bain and New Zealand High Commissioner Anton Ohala signed a partnership agreement towards the project's implementation, which is expected to take 3 to 5 years. Minister Bowen described the project as being timely as Grenada anticipates an increase in demand for electricity. He's optimistic that once the project is successful, Grenada can achieve its 2035 sustainable plan of being 100% energy renewable.
We do expect a significant rise in the demand for electricity. It has been stagnant over the last few years, which is, small percentage increases. But with the advancement that we have made with the economy and our plans, our 2035-year plan, to significantly improve through the rate that we are going and through the sacrifices that we have made and the results that we have seen, the 5% growth, that should increase, and with it, the demand for electricity. So your intervention, your assistance with the other technical partners will move this forward tremendously.
The project, now in its exploratory stage, with the environmental and social impact assessments nearing completion, will be piloted in St. John and St. Patrick. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Energy and Implementation, Kim Frederick, highlighted the objectives of the geothermal project.
The ultimate objective of the geothermal project is the addition of 15 megawatts of geothermal energy to the national energy mix, which will account for approximately 50% of Grenada's peak electricity demand. Under the Caribbean Geothermal Technical Assistance Facility and through the partnership agreement that will be signed shortly, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade will provide technical assistance services that are mutually agreed by the Government of Grenada and the Government of New Zealand to support geothermal exploration and development in Grenada. The overarching goal is to expand access to affordable, reliable, climate-resilient energy solutions from geothermal resources and the reduced reliance on imported fossil fuel in Grenada.
The government was commended by the High Commissioner on its interest in implementing the project, which will be spread throughout the Caribbean. He pledged his government's continued support to Grenada.
I think we are now building up something of a track record in the region on geothermal, having done some work in Dominica and currently being involved in St. Vincent and the Grenadines as well. And I think that at the pace that the government of Grenada is comfortable at proceeding with this project, we're very keen to continue providing support.
Still with the news, Prime Minister Dr. the Right Honourable Keith Mitchell met Friday with New Zealand's High Commissioner for Barbados and the member states of the Caribbean Community, Anton Ohala. Presenting his credentials to the Prime Minister, Mr. Ohala noted the similar challenges faced by Pacific and Caribbean islands, chief among these being the impact of climate change. The importance of renewable energy was discussed, and the Prime Minister recalled having the opportunity to visit alternative energy sites in New Zealand a few years ago. A significant portion of electricity in New Zealand is created using renewable energy. Dr. Mitchell welcomed the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding between Grenada and New Zealand, which focuses on geothermal energy. The Prime Minister underscored the importance of technical support in this and other areas, noting that it is an avenue through which Grenada can build its human resource capacity. Grenada and New Zealand established diplomatic relations in September 2013. This is the National Report. More news after the break.
Grenada, it's coming as the Ministry of Youth, Development, Sports, Culture and the Arts brings to you National Youth Week 2019, and it's one full week of activities, vibes and action as the nation turns their attention on the nation's youth. And it's from Saturday, October 19 till Saturday, November 2nd under the theme Embracing Opportunities, Sowing Higher. October 19th and 20th, National Community Service Weekend, island-wide. October 26th, Health Walk and Ministers Address. October 28th, Youth Vibe. October 29th, St. John's Youth Parliament. October 30th, Job Fair and Career Day. October 31st, Fun Nights. November 1st, Discovering Talents and Expo. November 2nd, it's National Youth Award. Sunday, November 3rd, Ecumenical Service and Peace Concert. So urging everyone to be a part of Youth Week 2019, October 19th to November 2nd.
Welcome back. The Ministry of Legal Affairs has noted the concern been expressed by some Grenadians regarding the outcome of a recent matter involving a sex offender which was heard in the Grenville Magistrate Court. Information from the court has revealed that a 24-year-old man alleged to be a pastor was charged summarily and pleaded guilty to indecently assaulting a 5-year-old child. He was fined $1,500 and ordered to pay the medical expenses incurred by the family. No prison term was imposed. Today we were advised that the Commissioner of Police, on the advice of the Director of the Public Prosecutions, has filed an appeal against the sentence imposed by the magistrate. The essence of that appeal is that the sentence imposed is manifestly inadequate, having regards to the circumstances of the case and the present legislation. Pursuant to the Criminal Code, the offense of indecent assault carries a maximum penalty of 5 years imprisonment. This matter highlights the issue of sexual offenses in Grenada against children and the need to ensure that existing laws indeed achieve the objective of deterring such offenses and to protect the vulnerable in our society. In 2012, after a consultative process with civil society, various provisions relating to sexual offenses in the Criminal Code were amended to increase the penalties for those offenses. Presently, the Attorney General's Office, in consultation with various stakeholders, including the Ministers of Legal Affairs and Social Development, is actively developing various administrative and legislative mechanisms to provide greater protection for children and other victims of sexual offenses. Work has also been done on the draft bill relating to a registration of the sexual offenders, which has been considered by various stakeholders in preparation of it being submitted to Parliament. Government is confident that the existing measures and others presently under consideration will foster greater effectiveness in the fight against sexual offenses. Finally, in the news and in related news, the Commissioner of Police has filed an appeal of the sentence handed down to Treverson Roberts, who was charged summarily and pleaded guilty in the Grenville Magistrate Court this week to 1 count of indecent assault. The offense was committed against a minor. The commissioner, in whose name the indecent assault case was brought, acted on the advice of the Director of Public Prosecutions in appealing the leniency of the sentence. Roberts was sentenced to pay a fine of $1,500 to the state of Grenada and $600 to the family of the child as compensation for medical expenses. The maximum sentence for the charge of indecent assault is 5 years imprisonment. That story just ended the national report for today, Friday, October 18th. Let's recap the top story. Unions refuse to show up for reconciliation meeting in deadlocked wage negotiations. On behalf of the entire news team here at the Government Information Service, I am Rakisha St. Louis saying thank you for joining us. Until next time.
Alrighty, folks, there you have it. That was Friday evening's edition of the National Report. Now, regarding the piece about the alleged deadlock between government and unions regarding salary negotiations, John Bruno says, how can one side declare deadlock when the negotiations just started? To me, this was planned to stall the talks until after the budget. Time will tell. John here says, re the geothermal project. Is it going to be just in time for the election campaign? Good question, John. Good question. I'm sure you're going to be hearing a lot more about that. And John Bruno answers by saying, another energy project to blind the eyes of people. Kipling Francis says, there's nothing honorable about Mr. Bowen. Time to stop misusing the word honorable. When was the meaning of the word honorable changed? I don't know. Sharon Roberts says, I'm in total agreement with you. Donna Joseph says, I get vexed whenever I hear these ministers talking about the improvement in economic growth and the ordinary citizens catching their nin to see it trickling down to them, while those very said ministers living la vida loca. What is that word, la vida loca? I have never heard that. I hope these ladies who are about to come on, I hope you guys know the meaning of the word la vida loca and could explain that to me. I haven't a clue. Anyhow, she says, while those very said ministers are living la vida loca, while they enrich themselves, a booming economy should show itself through improved health care, good infrastructure for education, and in the agricultural sector to enhance the agro-processing sector in order to lessen our food import bill. John says, read the sex offender. Is it the same judge handling these cases? I don't know, John. John Bruno says, the appeal was only filed after the people complained. Yeah, that John Bruno is talking about the fact that the RGPF did issue a statement saying that the Commissioner of Police has filed an appeal. Donna Joseph says, I'm in total agreement with you. It's time that we drop this honorable thing, especially onto dishonorable people. I see no honor in these people. Sharon Roberts says, the police, through immigration, should make sure he did not leave the country, talking about the pedophile there. Margaret Francis said, heard and was trying my darndest to bite my tongue. Was in the process of writing an oblique response when I saw your post. Okay, Mags, I know what that's just between Mags and me. Kipling Francis says, whenever I hear the PM sign an MOU, one thing comes to mind, misleading our understanding. Very crafty man. Sharon Roberts says, now Grenada government has to go through all kinds of trouble and we have to pay to bring him back. I saw some debate this morning, Sharon, as to whether or not this man is going to be extradited to Grenada or whether he's going to be dealt with in the United States. Time will tell. John here says, John is trying to explain to me La Vida Loca. You see, that's not the way it was spelled. John, you have broken it up into 3 words. La Vida Loca. This person had everything joined up. That's why I pronounced it the way I did. And John says, La Vida Loca is Spanish for the crazy life. So ladies out there coming on to Talk Fiscal Alert, you don't have to explain anything again. Thank you very much. All right, now, my dear friends, take a look. There they are. Let's say a good Monday morning. First of all, on the top left, Laurel Bain, team leader, an economist. Right below her sister, and that's Janice Bain, who is, Janice is a medical doctor. And to Janice's left, Gemma Bain Thomas. Girl, your name has become a household word. How are you ladies doing this morning?
You're doing great.
You're doing great.
How are you?
Good. I'm fine. Good to see you guys. I hope you all had a great weekend.
We did. Good weekend.
All right. And you're ready to go on this Monday morning. Folks out there are anxious to hear, where are you guys going this morning? You're not going to start with the La Vida Loca, are you?
No. Straight to the point.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, George. Good morning. Good day to all our viewers and listeners to Fiscal Alert. It is an educational program where we share knowledge and experiences. As George said, I have with me Gemma Bain Thomas and Janice Bain. And we are continuing the discussion on economic management with fiscal policy. Last week, we ended the discussion on the point that fiscal sustainability is important and fiscal transparency is critical. I commented on the ongoing wage negotiation and its link with the Fiscal Responsibility Act. This morning, I will come back to the Fiscal Responsibility Act. But I want us to go through our past experiences, as this may inform where we are today. Now, Grenada has a history of fiscal imbalances. It began in the 1970s when a number of stabilization programs were implemented to raise revenue, pay arrears, curb expenditure, and improve the savings position of the government. We entered the 1980s with a very fragile fiscal system. And by 1983, discussions were ongoing on a fiscal stabilization program. This time, however, the issue was related to government expenditure, and in particular, expenditure on transfers and subsidies, as the government utilized resources to support public enterprises, which were fundamental to the development model. Also, capital expenditure increased, and this widened the overall deficit. However, stabilization program was not implemented. As we approached 1986, there was a swing in the philosophy on the growth and development strategy for Grenada. And then, in support of a private sector-oriented growth strategy, a fiscal reform program was undertaken. It involved the abolition of personal income tax and the introduction of a VAT. The program for expenditure reduction did not materialize, and fiscal deficits emerged. However, the deficits were financed by grants from USA. But in the latter part of the 1980s, as the grants dwindled, the impact of the fiscal imbalances emerged, and the government accumulated arrears to domestic suppliers, we call that forced saving, and to external creditors. So again, we entered the 1990s with fiscal imbalance. And as early as 1991, personal income tax was reintroduced in the form of a debt service levy. In 1992, the following year, Grenada entered a structural adjustment program. Revenue increased, expenditure contained, and arrears being paid. And by 1994, as part of that said structural adjustment program, a formal personal income tax was introduced. The following year, 1995, the personal income tax was again abolished. And we sailed through the 1990s with a fiscal system without personal income tax. We go into the early 2000s, and by 2003, income tax was again introduced on high-income earners. Hurricane Ivan 2004, the need to restructure the $100 million US bond debt pointed us again to the need for fiscal stabilization. the global economic and financial crisis of 2008-2010 placed pressure on the economy, which contracted, revenue decline, and fiscal balances emerged. And this brings us to 2014, where we had a structural adjustment program. Again, the income tax structure was modified to make it more broad-based. But however, this time, with the 2014 structural adjustment program, it was accompanied in the following year by a Fiscal Responsibility Act. Now, the Fiscal Responsibility
Laurel?
Act... Yes.
Yeah. So it seems like we've had periods where we had income tax, and we've also had periods where we had no income tax. Now, which would you say had the most positive impact on the economy, with income tax or without income tax?
Okay. All right, Janice, thanks. The abolition of income tax is normally accompanied by higher purchasing power, ability to invest, and ability to save. And these have favorable impact on the economy. Although it is not possible to make a direct link in terms of growth in the economy, since a number of factors contribute to growth at one point in time. But increased disposable income do have an impact on economic activity. However, experiences have shown that after a few years, the government revenue is adversely affected. And this also affects government ability to impact on economic growth. And then these countries, most countries, including Grenada, return to a personal income tax. And it becomes an integral part of the tax structure.
Okay.
Oh. So I will go back now to the Fiscal Responsibility Act. The Fiscal Responsibility Act is very precise, detailed, and technical. It is related to central government and covered entities. It has the following proposal: an expenditure rule, which indicates that primary expenditure must not grow by more than 2% in real terms. And primary expenditure are the expenditure on personal emoluments, which is the wage bill and associated benefits, the purchases of goods and services by ministries and departments, transfers and subsidies, which include pension, and some capital expenditure. The other target is that the wage bill should not be more than 9% of GDP. There is a target for the primary balance of 3% of GDP. And the primary balance is the total expenditure less the interest payment. In addition, there is a debt to GDP ratio target of 55%. Along with these targets, there are other provisions in the Act in terms of the compilation of the targets, periods for suspension of the benchmark and how it is recovered. And therefore, within that framework, if we operate with a debt to GDP target of 55% and the associated expenditure rules, it will ensure in the medium term that there is no issues or problems associated with the accumulation of massive debt. However, debt sustainability, as defined in the fiscal rules, would be achieved by compressing expenditure of primary expenditure. The debt will be achieved by compressing primary expenditure. And I could give an example. The fiscal...
So Laurel, again, based on this Fiscal Responsibility Act, and in light of the negotiations that's going on for the wage increase, will you say that the government is limited to 3% increase?
Well, let me answer in terms of an example. And if there is a 3% real increase in wages, it means that you have to compensate elsewhere. For example, the rate of inflation in the last year, in 2018, was 1%. A real growth in primary expenditure means that it should increase by 3%, as you say. However, if expenditure increases more than 3%, compensation will have to be made somewhere else in terms of a less than 2% real growth in expenditure. And these compensation will be areas like your purchases of goods and services, transfers and pensions, or in the expenditure of the other covered entities.
So
there must be a compensatory factor.
So when you say goods and services, exactly what it is you're referring to?
Purchase of medical supplies, education supplies, social services supplies. These are your goods and services, your utility bills, your goods and services.
So in other words, they will have to take away from education or health in order to be able to give a higher wage increase. Would that be correct?
Once you are containing the expenditure within the rules of 2% in real terms, any expenditure by one component, which is higher than that, will have to be compensated, yes, by other areas or expenditure.
Okay.
And Laurel, John on Facebook is saying that the Fiscal Responsibility Act is only used when it suits the government. That is for wage negotiations. He's just saying. Ryan is saying that a country cannot tax itself into prosperity. And John again is saying, what are other entities?
The covered entities, okay. In terms of the covered entities,
Not covered, what are other entities?
Other entities,
yes.
Where?
I guess when you spoke about education, health, and so.
Oh, okay. I mentioned other entities, referring to the other covered entities, because the provisions are made for central government and the covered entities. Now, the covered entities are defined in the Fiscal Responsibility Act, and they are supposed to be included in the indicators. In terms of taxing yourself, I agree with the comment, and that's why I said previously on another occasion, during periods of fiscal stabilization, it is necessary to have funds injected on the capital program to ensure that activity is taking place or gross domestic product is increasing. There was another comment, Gemma. Was three you gave?
One was just a comment, so you can proceed.
Okay. So fiscal rules, I consider them as guide to fiscal policy. But the objective of fiscal policy is economic growth and development. It is my opinion that fiscal rules should be designed in such a way that it gives the authority adequate flexibility to manage the finances with the objective of promoting economic growth and development. In addition, in relation to monitoring and evaluation, I think intensive monitoring and evaluation of operations are needed. Together with the need to include the covered entities, I think, and because I mentioned, the act is a very technical act, and therefore consideration may need to be given to strengthening the oversight committee with technical officers to review the fiscal operations, not only the fiscal operation, but the fiscal operations in the context of the economic environment or the other sectors of the economy. And this will give and report quarterly on a timely basis, as this will give a comprehensive assessment of what is taking place in the economy. And particular, it will answer the questions posed last week as to where are the overall balances, the funds relating to the overall balances directed. In addition, I also believe that the Fiscal Responsibility Act is technical, and the economic agents must know or be aware of what they are operating with. And therefore, it is necessary to have an education component if the act is being used to guide fiscal policy. In conclusion,
just one more comment again, Laurel, and back to the Fiscal Responsibility Act. And from what you said, it seems like there's provision in the act for the debtors to be paid. There's also some flexibility so that the government can limit spending. Is there any provision for just the ordinary citizen, or are these instabilities being corrected on the backs of the regular citizen?
Okay, thanks. In this case, the adjustment is based on your primary expenditure, and hence your domestic expenditure is what will bear the burden of adjustment. In this scenario, with the Fiscal Responsibility Act, the burden of adjustment is on your domestic expenditure, in particularly your economic agents, and hence the issue of the wage bill and the negotiation process and the extent to which the wage bill could increase. And I must say also that the act refers to public, relating to the wage bill, refers to central government workers and those of the covered entity.
So, Laurel, as you're about to wind down, we have two comments on Facebook. One from Prince, which says, it seems there might be another economic impact on the economy, the trade war, as the trade war is becoming a major problem and is based between two of the great economic powers that exist. What would you recommend we as small countries do to reduce the impact on our countries?
Yes.
I know your time is limited, so I will just read the other comments on Facebook, and maybe next week we'll have to come back and answer some of these questions.
Gemma, hold on
There's
a minute.
another comment.
Gemma, I think that question that you just asked Laurel is an important one. Give her the time. Let her take the time she needs to answer that.
The one with the trade wars.
Yes.
Yeah, the trade wars generally results in the countries involved, particularly the US and the tariffs, with higher prices. We import significant amount of goods from the US, and generally our rate of inflation is tied to what is happening to the US and to oil prices. Therefore, if trade wars escalate, we expect to have higher prices in our domestic economy. Our higher prices mean that our purchasing power will decline. In other words, the amount of goods and services our population could buy now would be reduced. Here, fiscal policy is important. As we will discuss in our subsequent discussions, another role for fiscal policy is economic stabilization. How does it deal with these fluctuations in activities that influence our gross domestic product? And the government has a role to play in maintaining a steady growth, relatively low inflation, and we will go deeper in that in our next session. However, it impacts on our purchasing power, generally through higher inflation.
All right.
Gemma, there was another question.
Yes, there was another comment from Ryan who said Grenada needs to be able to have wealth creating modalities. Wealth is a modality which is income producing. Example, light manufacturing, agro industries, fishing industries, etc., albeit employment producing.
Yes, and that's why we said that one of the role of fiscal policy, among other economic policy, is economic growth and development. And the term transformation has been added in recent times, where you bring up the level of production of the country to a higher level, increasing productivity, increasing exports, and improving the well-being of the population.
Okay.
Just
two more. I'll just read two more. Donnet Greenwich Thomas is saying good morning.
Good morning.
That's Michelle. I guess you know Michelle, Margaret's daughter. Samantha McFarlane, the state of Grenada is in a serious economic state. And Donna Joseph is saying, is the same Fiscal Responsibility Act only has space for the huge payout that the PM have to his security detail, while teachers and public servants catching their tail to get a reasonable wage increase and pension for their hard work and service to this nation.
And I will refer back to my earlier comment that the performance of the government, and I suggest a technical team support, most likely the firm, to examine the fiscal performance report in the context of the economic environment, knowing that our overall objective is growth and development, and report quarterly on the fiscal performance relative to the other economic sectors. I could conclude now by saying fiscal benchmarks provide a guide to fiscal policy. However, the design of the fiscal benchmark is very important. It should be designed in such a way that it provides flexibility for the authorities to manage the finances to promote growth and development. Join us next week
Hold on.
when we look at
Laurel, I'm reluctant to this thing is hot. I'm reluctant to let you go. I'm reluctant to let you go so easily. And I don't, just in case some of the people who are there right now can't join us next week, there's another comment here from Prince Moses. He says, do you think CARICOM should have a more active role in the development of countries? In other words, would the Caribbean countries' development increase if they apply CARICOM policies and help out each other? Wouldn't this decrease the fiscal impact on the nations and help facilitate development with these countries?
Right, this is an excellent question, George, because we have regional processes, integration movements. We have CARICOM and we have the OECS Economic Union for the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. There are benefits to be derived from cooperation because we are small economies. It is difficult for us to provide full services to all the population, and therefore it is very good. It's a very good idea if we cooperate and share some of these resources. I must mention also that among the countries of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, the agreement for cooperation is very strong. And if we utilize it, it will reduce some of our overhead costs and maybe reduce the cost of government and let some benefit redound to the population. So yes, utilizing our regional arrangements are extremely helpful in reducing overhead costs to government and allowing growth and some benefits to redound to the population. But these programs at a regional level have to ensure that they benefit the population at a national level.
Thanks, Laurel. Now, if you want to bail, I will let you bail.
So I will say now, join us next week when we look at the economic stabilization role of fiscal policy. And I close by saying, knowledge is power. Experience is the greatest teacher. Have a good day.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Laurel
you.
and
Bye.
Janice
Bye.
and Gemma. We look forward to seeing you guys again next week. Have a good day.
See you next week.
God bless
Bye.
you
Thank
all.
you.
All righty, folks, there they go. How informative. Not only that, but this morning these folks were actually entertaining as well, huh? And I certainly hope that those of you online there got some answers to your questions. And we're glad that you shared your thoughts with them. I think they appreciate it as well. Now, let's see here. One quick little break, and then we're going to come back and wrap it up.
In our part of the world, we need to be prepared for natural disasters like storms and hurricanes, even outside of the season. I'm sure you'll agree that keeping our loved ones, homes, and businesses safe is important. So, I came up with a few quick tips to help you stay safe. First, make a family disaster plan and ensure that everyone in your household is familiar and comfortable with it. Remember to add batteries and flashlights to your emergency kit. Now, for electrical safety. Familiarize yourself with your electrical panel, as it may be necessary to switch off the power during a storm or flood. Make sure you install a transfer or isolation switch to prevent your generator feeding electricity to Grenlec's line. If trees are too close to power lines, call Grenlec at 237 for advice. By following these easy steps, you will be well on your way to being hurricane ready. Don't be caught off guard by natural disasters. Prepare now. For more information, visit grenlec.com.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Can I have a chicken lunch, please? Large.
Real nice today.
Mm-mm. I don't want that.
But you just asked for a chicken lunch.
I don't have problem with the lunch. Afraid the container.
What is the problem with it?
These styrofoam containers, they don't good for the environment. They shorten with life.
What foolishness you telling me? So what you want me to use?
Put my food in this.
Where you get that?
At the food fair, where you could get all biodegradable food boxes and disposable food supplies like cups, plates, anything you could think about. Name it, it's there. And they don't harm the environment. Food fair, taking the lead in cleaning up and protecting the environment. Hey, like you take me advice, you get in your biodegradable food supplies.
Well, girl, I supporting who supporting the environment. That is why I shop in at food fair.
Food fair, where you can fill your baskets without emptying your pockets. Products distributed by Hubbard's agency, Kirani James Boulevard.
Alrighty, folks, by the way here, Ryan is saying, bring these smart ladies back real soon, Gigi. Ryan, this was their third visit, and I expect that we're going to have them here every Monday morning at 9:30. Thank you guys for being so kind to them. Now, let's pull the curtain down with a parting word from the Holy Scriptures. And today's word comes to you from the book of Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 12, verses 7 to 11. Endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as his children. For what children are not disciplined by their father? If you are not disciplined, and everyone undergoes discipline, then you are not legitimate, not true sons and daughters at all. Moreover, we have all had human fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them for it. How much more should we submit to the Father of spirits and live? They disciplined us for a little while as they thought best. But God disciplines us for our good, in order that we may share in his holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. That reading, my friends, from the book of Hebrews, chapter 12, verses 7 to 11. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, that's going to pull the curtain down on this Monday morning as we launch into a brand new week here on Gudday Grenada. Wow. By the way, just in case you missed yesterday's edition of Sundays with George Grant, be sure to go check it out. It's up there on Grenada Broadcast. It's up on Facebook. It's up on YouTube. Check it out. Very interesting discussion between Brian Pitt and former Attorney General Cajetan Hood yesterday. Check it out, my dear friends. Check it out. Check it out. May the good Lord bless and keep you. And by his grace, let's get together here again tomorrow morning. So long.